Good morning, everybody. This is Carla Royal, and today I want to continue our discussions about the brain. People seem to really enjoy the last two videos I did talking about some brain science and how to optimize your brain. So today I want to talk to you about what happens when you kind of collapse into your emotions. What happens when you get really, really revved up, jacked up. You're just kind of spinning out with an emotion. And I want to begin by reading another quote from the book Your Brain at Work. And he says, "The key is how you do it. To reduce arousal, you need to use just a few words to describe an emotion, and ideally use symbolic language, which means using indirect metaphors, metrics, and simplifications of your experience. This requires you to activate your prefrontal cortex, which reduces the arousal in the limbic system. Here's the bottom line. Describe an emotion in just a word or two, and it helps reduce the emotion. Open up a dialogue about an emotion, though, and you tend to increase it." So that is really, really important because you can imagine as an ex-therapist and now as a coach, and then you put that on top of that, my personality, my unique personality, and I just want to analyze everything to death. And when I did that, whenever I had an emotion come up, fear, anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever it was, what I would do is analyze it to death. I would talk about it with myself generally, sometimes with other people too. I would do it, you could call it navel gazing. And what that does is it actually keeps that emotion alive. Brain science is showing that yes, indeed, you do need to acknowledge the emotion. It's not about denying it, because that's not useful either. But you do need to acknowledge, you do need to describe it, but in as few words as possible. And once you do that, then you need to leave it alone. This seems counter to certainly what I was taught years ago in my graduate degree and what I thought psychotherapy was all about, which is reliving the story again and again and again and delving into it again and again and again. And it's important to know that while it is important to tell your story, it's not useful to go over it and over it again and again. I see some people posting on Facebook who all they talk about is how horrible things are for them. And I'm not minimizing the fact that there's some horrible things happening out there. But when you keep talking about it over and over and over and over again, you are going to keep the horrible very much alive. And so it's important to bring your attention to and your understanding to the fact that you need to speak it, you need to tell your story, you need to give voice to your emotion, but you don't need to take up residence there. You don't need to move in there. You don't need to live there, if you will. And I think that this has been, it's absolutely been life-changing for me and for some of my clients. I've told you before in these videos, when I wake up in a low mood, instead of analyzing it to death, instead of judging it to death, instead of criticizing myself to death like I did for decades, I now acknowledge it and go about my day. And I cannot tell you what a relief that has been to me, because I find that when I leave it alone, eventually my psychological system finds equilibrium again. It's always seeking equilibrium. And when we can allow it to do its work and not get too involved in it with all of our stories about it, all of our angst about it, then our system is able to come back to equilibrium much more quickly. So don't take my word for it. This is something that I want you to experiment with. I want you to play with. What happens when you leave the emotions alone after you've acknowledged them? What happens when you don't post paragraph after paragraph, day after day about your woes? What happens when you share your woes with a friend in confidence and then you leave it alone? Try it, play with it, and let me know how it is for you. I would really, really love for you to experiment with this and see how it is for you. Now listen, you have a habit in place. If you are used to dwelling in these emotions and talking about them a ton, then you have a habit in place, and it's not going to be overnight that you break that habit. But I want you to begin experimenting with this and see what you see, and see if over time you get a little bit of relief. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Carla Royal, a mindset and performance coach, and I work with high-performing, high-achieving entrepreneurs and business owners who are quietly dealing with too much mental chatter and anxiety. I hope you'll visit me at carlaroyal.com, and please connect with me at LinkedIn. Thank you. Have a great day.